Now that your piece has been fired one time, it is called bisqueware. It is white and it is more sturdy than it was before we fired it, but it still is fragile and will break if we're not careful with them. So make sure that you're holding it with 2 hands and you're very gentle with your clay piece. Make sure you have a clean brush, like I'm doing, before you get started glazing. You can choose as many colors as you'd like to use, but you're going to use one color at a time. If you think you would like to put one color on top of another, you may just make sure that you pick the lighter color first. So I'd like to put some red in the little flower shape in the middle of my flower in the end. So I'm going to start with yellow and then I'll do the red later because red is a darker color than the yellow. When you're using glaze, you want to make sure that you're getting down into every little part and you're very careful with the glaze because glaze is a paint for clay that is very expensive. So if you make a mistake, we don't want to just go wiping it all off and starting again. You want to be very thoughtful and careful as you're using glaze so that we don't waste it. Make sure that you cover any area that's white because if you don't, everything else will be shiny and the white will be still white and it will really show up once the glaze is fired. Also, the colors are going to be brighter when they are fired. So this yellow looks nice and yellow right now, but after it's fired, it's going to be very bright. Another important thing to remember when you're glazing is that you paint the glaze one time over the surface and then you need to paint it a second time. So 2 coats of glaze on every area. You can't really tell after it's been painted if you've painted it 1 time or 2 times, so you just have to focus while you're painting and make sure that you paint it 2 times. When I finish with my color, I'm going to scrape the extra glaze off into the jar like this. Since it is expensive, we don't want to waste. And now make sure that I have a very clean brush before I start with another color. Another thing that's important to remember when you're painting with glaze is that we don't paint the very bottom of a piece. We need to leave it glaze free if it would be touching the table when you set it down. So notice I'm painting a very careful edge there so that I'm not painting on the bottom of the flower. But on the side where it's not touching the table, I can paint there. The reason for this is that glaze has glass particles in it. Those glass particles melt when we're firing the clay, and that's what makes the shiny, glassy surface. But if you have it on the bottom of your piece, it will get stuck to the kiln shelf when we fire it, and that's a no good.